recording artist. In 2001, of course, I've been singing all my life and went to college and studied music and majored in voice and all of that world, most of that world was very performance oriented and sing the high note and harmonize and so forth. But I left there thinking I was moving to Nashville. I had a couple of offers with some groups there, but something was tugging me more in the area of worship than performance. And I knew from my own parents and my own upbringing the use of your gift is for God's purposes and not your own. But it was put to the test when there were lots of opportunities to just pursue this for myself and realizing that God had something different planned. So that's always been a part of my heart, and I've had plenty of opportunities to perform, for conventions and National Day of Prayer events and conferences and entertainment types of things in Branson and so forth. But that's just not my heart. It's not what I believe is the reason God gave me whatever gifts He's given me.
Do you sing in some of the events that you do, like the men's retreat or I shouldn't say men's retreat, maybe the couples retreat? Do you do that? Do you sing?
I do once in a while. I actually have some songs that I've recorded that speak very well to the themes of my conferences, but in 2001, I launched my own ministry and I went to Nashville and I recorded, and I thought that's all I would do. But God had already been working in my heart in terms of my gifts, my spiritual gifts and my passion, and I felt like I was supposed to explore that more, to really understand the man that God was calling me to be. And it was not somebody that was on a stage just presenting. It was a man intricately involved in the life of people. And so I made the mistake of thinking, Doug, that God could only use us in something we're skilled in, we're educated for, we're talented in, and others like. I used that criteria, and that's why I thought coming out of college that I would do nothing but sing. Little did I know that God's vision and His plan for all of us, not just me, was to use my life in a way that would bring so much greater fulfillment and challenge me, because I had to trust in Him. One of those areas was becoming a worship pastor. In 1985, I guess it was, I was just coming out of Anderson University, and I thought I would just be singing the rest of my life. And the Lord began tugging at me. I want you to serve me in the local church. And I came kicking and screaming. I did not want Reverend in front of my name. My dad had been a pastor. I just thought I was going to be walking a different path. And really, I was not into it. I was not open to it. And the Lord just canceled all opportunities around, so this was the only way I would be able to use the music that God had given me. And little did I know it would become my calling. And I was singing in Branson with my family, the Braschler Music Show, in 1987, and I was reading Chuck Swindoll's book, Living Above the Level of Mediocrity. Have you ever heard of it or read it?
No, I haven't read it.
Oh my goodness. It should be on the top 5 list of anybody who is endeavoring to really follow God's will. Living Above the Level of Mediocrity by Chuck Swindoll. I gave it to each of my sons to read. It was so profound in my life. I'm riding on the tour bus when we would travel during the winters, and I'm reading this book in a little pin light in my bunk on this travel bus as we toured the country as the music show. And God began to speak to me about how He wanted to use me, and how just settling to be a singer alone would be settling for mediocrity. That He had so much more He wanted to do and accomplish through my life. And I didn't see myself that way at all as somebody that would do something like profound, or even being a pastor. I didn't see myself that way at all. And the more I read and the more I listened and the more I prayed, I could not deny it. I could not get away from it. And I followed a call into the ministry, and I literally did not really know anything of what I was doing. I had never spoken in front of people. I'd only sung. If you wanted me to sing the announcements, I'll take that, but I had never done anything like this. And the Lord made it so crystal clear this is where I was supposed to be. And so even today now, 20, 30 years later, my heart when it comes to music is worship. I agree, I believe that these two are separate entities. That just because you're singing music doesn't mean you're involved in worshiping God. And just because you want to worship God doesn't mean you need to include music. And very often I find these two intermingled as one. In fact, my title was Music and Worship Pastor. But those are two completely different responsibilities. When I resigned from the show, my mother handed me a card with advice. It had a quote on it from Thomas Edison that said, "Blessed is he who hustles while he waits." Thomas Edison. I said, "Mom, what does this mean?" She said, "Well, I don't know if Thomas Edison was a believer or not, but I believe what he wrote is of spiritual significance." I said, "How so?" She said, "I believe that God answers our greatest questions when He sees us being diligent and preparing with the lesser issues. Hustling while you're waiting. So you're praying, God, show me the direction and the use of my life. And God is saying, how can you get ready so when I answer that question, you're ready for the answer?" And so I spent the next year just trying to see and ask the Lord, how do I prepare to be a worship pastor? I've never done this before. I don't know what this is like. And that set in motion the next 13 years of serving as a worship pastor in a church, which really has positioned my heart as an artist now, that if I'm going to be a part of a service or be a part of a convention or a retreat, vocally, musically, it must be centered around opportunities to worship, or you just need to hire somebody else. I just don't have a heart to perform. I don't have a heart for anything other than using what God has given me to lead people to a deeper understanding, a deeper walk with God than what they currently have. You know, I've often heard that if God is leading my thoughts, if God is leading anything in my life, my attention will be turned to Him. But one sure sign that God is not leading is if my thoughts and my focus and who I'm worried about is me, Satan is leading that direction. So my conferences and events are all focused on how do I take good men and completely focus them on Christ, on what He's saying and on His relationship with them and all. So I guess I've always felt like to then go, hey, I'm going to sing a song. I know it's got a message and all, but I'm going to sing in the middle of this. I don't know. It just seems like an interruption into what the Spirit is doing in these retreats and conferences. So very often I'll come and do a Friday and Saturday conference or training with a church, and then I'll sing and speak on Sunday. And that's where the music portion comes in that direction. But
and because you're used to being the worship leader and you feel comfortable if you're in that church setting, that getting up and sharing a song with them.
Oh yeah, because usually the song is themed after either the day of worship or it's themed after where we're headed with the sermon. It's an encouragement or it's a challenge. It speaks to some specific topic that we're going to then speak on. So it's intermingled with ministry, and it fits into that kind of a setting. So yeah, I guess I want to say in conclusion to this that, you know, if a church were to have me come and be a part of their service or their event, that my entire heart is leading people to the feet of Christ through music. And music is just a tool. It's not the target. And so placing the face of Christ and at the feet of Jesus as the target and the reason that I would have a gift even to use, those are the settings that I feel God has prepared and trained me for.
You know, Todd, I find it really interesting when you're talking about it, because you can go back and you can say, well, here's the time, here's the day, here's what I was reading, here was my conversation with my parents. And even though I may have been in position to been tremendously successful with the music, personally had been in that position. So we could have done things together. I could have been in the Nashville scene with all of that. And you were able to pinpoint to the exact time where the Lord says, well, that's a tool for you, Todd, but here's the hammer. This is the one I want you to use to do my work. And you were able to perceive that. You think back about that time?
Every day. You know, I remember singing in a church in Lexington when I was the worship pastor in about 1992. And it was a tremendous song, a Laurel Harris song called Much Too High a Price. And then, boy, it's a beautiful song, high notes, and you know, a wonderful, powerful message. And when it was finished, I looked out and I just saw flatlined. And I remember being so misaligned in my own heart as an artist even, that I said, what is the deal with these people? They don't get the message. They don't appreciate the song. What's the problem? And the Lord came back to me later and said, it isn't them. It's you. He said, you have used your music to identify yourself, which is pretty common in my world today. In the world I live in today, being famous because of your talent or skill is pretty common. And I see myself as famous. I see myself as talented or gifted or whatever definition you would want to use. And the Lord was just saying, you're tempted to be there. In fact, you use your voice, Todd, sometimes to get yourself into opportunities, even hired by churches. You've used your voice for that, haven't you? And I was like, yeah, I have, because I didn't think me would be enough. And the Lord said, I'm giving you a choice. Because the people are flatlined in the response, not because of the song or the message, but because of you. Your heart's not where it needs to be. He said, you've seen this story or heard the story of Abraham and Isaac, haven't you? Yeah. And he said, you remember how Abraham was just about to sacrifice his son because God told him to? Yeah. And you remember how at the last minute how God provided a ram that was tangled in the briars and the brambles to replace this sacrifice? He said, your voice is Isaac. And if you keep going the way you're going, I'm going to take it. If I were to take your voice, who would you be? And to be honest, at the moment, I'd be nobody. I depended so much on my voice and my talent to get me in the door. I discounted everything else that God had given me or wanted me to be. And God said, you can either sacrifice your voice right here and I'll take it and I won't let you sing again, or I'll provide a ram in the snares over here, your heart.
Do you believe that the Lord in those settings like that, if you say, I'm going to do the voice, I'm going to keep going that area, that the Lord would say, Todd, that's fine. You go on and do that. And I have somebody else that I'm raising up that's going to be in the position that I really had for you, the ministry. Do you think that's?
I do. I believe that there are many people that had the opportunity. You and I both know so many people who have been given ministry opportunity and said, oh, I'm not equipped for that, or you don't know my past, I'm damaged goods or whatever, and walk right out the door. And God definitely says, hey, if not you, I'll find somebody who has a heart that's willing and available. And that's my story. Man, that's how I became a worship leader. That's how I became a recording artist. That's how my heart has been formed into moments where I would participate on a weekend with the church, and I so want it to just be an opportunity to further lead them to the feet of Christ. Even in concert settings, I so want it to be a connection with the Holy Spirit. And so that's really the heart of my concert ministry, the heart of the times when I get to participate in a worship service on a Sunday morning even, is to be a part of what God is already doing there in the area of worship. Not to come in as an interruption and go, okay, we got to set worship aside. We got this guest singer here today. Now, that's not my heart. And boy, what a joy it is to come in and just ride a wave that God is already creating in a church like that.